Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy. It's here, it's finally here, the Snyder Cut exists, and it is long, but that just means that it's loaded with Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed. The movie opens with the aftermath of Batman vs. Superman, and this scene of Lex Luthor with the mother boxes was actually the deleted ending of that movie. Now, when we go to Atlantis, we discover that, holy hell, Mira has a completely different accent.
He's as short-sighted as he is cruel. Alright, take what men we have left and form a phalanx around the mother box.
It's interesting that this one creative decision by Joss Whedon to Americanize her reverberated and affected the movie Aquaman. Personally, I like the English accent way better. It marks her as royalty and creates a class division between her and Arthur that would have been a lot more fun in Aquaman. I also love that when they're not in an air bubble, the Atlanteans communicate with dolphin squeaks. I kind of like to think that they still do this in the movie Aquaman and we're just hearing a translation. The temple on Themyscira bears a star, the symbol of the Amazons that Diana also wears on her headpiece. Now, one of the reasons this version is so long is because of the slow motion sequences. Let us go now. Extra sequences like Cyborg gaining digital consciousness, or Diana and Alfred making tea.
You should put the water in first.
Of course.
So we don't scald the tea.
And then there's also this long sequence of Icelandic women harmonizing about Aquaman and smelling his sweater. This headline reads that a security firm is looking for a new architect. Now, this seems pretty random, so it could be a reference to the Green Lantern John Stewart, who was originally an architect in the comics. The cop Lois slow motion delivers coffee to is named Jerry, a tribute to Jerry Siegel, one of the co-creators of Superman. This actor is Mark McClure, who played Jimmy Olsen in the original Superman movies. This bridge tribute to Superman is an homage to the black armbands DC sold after Superman's death in the comics, and it also foreshadows his black suit at the end of the movie. Wonder Woman's fight against the Anarchists is one of the best action sequences in the entire film. Now, because this story is about the League not being strong enough as individuals, I was genuinely afraid that one of these bullets would get past her and kill a kid. She begins the movie perched on a statue of Justice. Very subtle. She murders Roose Bolton in front of children with the gauntlet move that we saw her learn in Wonder Woman. Junkie XL's score is incredible, and I particularly love the Battlestar Galactica-like choir that accompanies the Amazons. But of course, it can't match up to the badass Wonder Woman theme, the best superhero theme since Elfman's Batman. Steppenwolf gets a great redesign in this version and also some character motivation. He's pissed off Darkseid and he's trying to win his way back home. This makes him more sympathetic, a lot more like Loki in the Avengers, and less like a generic bad guy from space. Bruce is tracking down League members based on the intel he got from Lex Luthor's laptop, which also assigned logos to each hero. I wonder if that was Lex himself, or if he assigned a graphic designer. I like that Bruce is motivated by the promise that he made on Clark's grave. Remember, he became Batman after making a similar promise on the grave of his parents, and this is a neat way to show his shifting focus from defending Gotham City to defending the entire world. The Amazons fire the arrow of Artemis, goddess of the hunt, and also the best kitty in the whole wide world. Hippolyta's robe is modeled after the armor of Asteria that Diana wore in Wonder Woman 1984. That armor belonged to a legendary Amazon who ventured into man's world centuries before Diana. And before that, it was the battle armor that Diana wore in Kingdom Come. Silas Stone's fellow scientist is named Ryan Choi, who becomes the hero Adam in the comics. When Silas enters the Kryptonian ship, we hear Zod's theme from Man of Steel. Diana enters the Temple of Athena, where this mural depicts the battle where Earth united to defeat Sauron, Darkseid. The mural also depicts the tribes of men and parademons. Now, I didn't spot any Atlanteans in the mural, so maybe the Amazons left them out because of the whole Atlantis-Amazonian rivalry. The mural shows Darkseid combining 3 mother boxes, foreshadowing the final battle. And yo, this reveal of Aquaman is badass, even if the needle drop is a little too on point. The boat that Aquaman saves is called the Cortland, a reference to the housing project in Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Snyder is a huge fan of the novel, and Ayn Rand's philosophy bleeds through into his interpretation of these characters. One thing I loved about this cut was the introduction of Aquaman. He's the breakout character from the film, and it's easy to see why he got the first solo movie. Snyder does a terrific job seeding the other DC solo films, but at the detriment of this film's pacing. Let me know if you thought it was too long in the comments below. Willem Dafoe's Volko giving exposition about Arthur's heritage, Mira filling in the blanks about her mother, it all works great. Though it's interesting that Mira was an orphan in this version and Arthur's adopted sister, and that changed in the Aquaman solo movie. I guess it would be weird if Aquaman pulled a Tenenbaum and fell for his adopted sister. This also explains where Arthur got his mother's trident, which kind of came out of nowhere in the Whedon cut. He also lingers on a statue of King Atlan, who we saw flashbacks of in Aquaman. Steppenwolf talks to Desaad, Darkseid's head torturer. He says,
"They're a primitive species, unevolved and at war with one another, too separate to be one."
And the point of this movie is to unite the world, unite the Amazons and Atlanteans, and most importantly, to unite the Justice League. He says,
"No protectors here. No lanterns."
A reference to the Green Lantern Corps. Now, we see a Green Lantern later, but Snyder was saving a human Green Lantern for Justice League 3. Now, we did a video breaking down the final scene of the Snyder Cut and the proposed sequels. Check that one out if you have time. Diana subtly mentioned Steve Trevor.
"I once knew a man who would have loved to fly it."
And then she recounts the battle against Darkseid. We see her father Zeus and Ares, who even thousands of years ago sported that same mustache that he had in Wonder Woman. This is truly a flavor saver of the gods. We see Atlanteans before the descent, making me wonder if this was intended to be King Atlan. The trident isn't the same one we saw in Aquaman, but I mean, Mira has a different accent in that movie, so who knows? Diana makes a reference to the enslavement of the Amazons. In Greek mythology, they were enslaved by Hercules, and really any other male warrior who wanted to prove he was a badass. But in the DCEU, they were enslaved by humans under the influence of Ares. We see humans from cultures all over the world. Very impressive that they were able to mass communicate and travel there together. So, Darkseid behaves like he's on the show Cops, taking off his shirt and starting a fight. Turns out he's a little bitch that gets taken down by an axe, and then his minions just kind of forget where Earth was. Yep, they just didn't drop the pin on the map and keep track of the one planet strong enough to defeat him. Solid story point. I did like seeing Zeus power up a Hadouken though. Hadouken! The Green Lantern in the flashback appears to be Yalin Gur, who protected this space sector 2,000 years ago in the comics. Okay, we meet Barry Allen, God, this movie's long, and he encounters Iris West, his love interest and future wife in the comics. He saves her from this truck, which is from Gardner Fox Farms, named after the legendary Flash Rider from the comics. Oh, and I love this little detail that his speed made his shoes fall apart. Now, Cyborg is the character who benefits the most from these extra scenes. We get a fleshed out origin, and the visualization of him inside the internet was great. Notice his football number was 7. The movie sees a recurrence of the numbers 7 and 3. The original tagline of the movie was to unite the 7. There's 7 members of the League, including Martian Manhunter. There are also 7 kingdoms for Arthur to unite and 3 tribes, Atlanteans, Amazonians, and humans. These are also significant numbers in the Bible. God created the world in 7 days, making it a number of completion, while 3 represents the Holy Trinity. The Superman as Jesus metaphors were not subtle in Man of Steel, and they're less subtle here after he goes through a Christ-like resurrection. Cyborg is created by a mother box called Object 6-1982. This is a reference to the new Teen Titans #1, which was released in June 1982 and told the origin of Cyborg. At one point, he stands by a poster of Kafka's Metamorphosis, a story about the author turning into a cockroach. Appropriate since Victor believes that he has turned into a monster. Gotham City University's scoreboard is sponsored by Wayne Enterprises. Victor gives money to a woman named Linda Reed. This could be a reference to Linda Reed from Earth 2, who was briefly a love interest of Green Arrow's. Barry visits his dad at Iron Heights Penitentiary, Central City's main lockup from the comics. Later, the League also fights in the tunnels near Stryker's Island, a similar prison in Metropolis. Barry tells Bruce,
"Fluent in sign language? Gorilla sign language."
A nod to the villain Gorilla Grodd. When Barry meets Bruce, you can see an episode of Rick and Morty playing here in the background. Rick and Morty, also owned by Warner Brothers, corporate synergy. In Barry's lair, there's a photo of the scientist Nikola Tesla, the electricity pioneer. When Barry and Bruce leave, the camera lingers on a billboard for AFSP.org. This stands for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, and I think it's lovely that Zack Snyder displayed it so prominently in the movie. Bruce is augmenting his gauntlets with Kryptonian tech, a nice way to explain how he'll actually be useful in the fight against aliens later on. Ray Fisher drops the second F-bomb in the movie, which earned it an R rating.
World.
For me, this F-bomb is justified. The others, not so much. I think the others are in the movie just to make it R-rated. I like that when Steppenwolf Zoom calls Darkseid, his armor retracts. It's a way of showing him defer to his leader. The scene where the League decides to resurrect Superman is much much better in this movie. Notice that in the Whedon cut, everything is static, wides and close-ups, because it was all shot on a green screen. Here, the camera is always in motion. Lois gets a visit from Martha Kent, who turns out to be Jean-Jean's the Martian Manhunter. Now, he's just a cameo in this movie, but in the comics, he's a founding member of the Justice League and one of its most important members. He's also played by Henry Lennox, who also played General Swanwick in Man of Steel, meaning that he was an alien all along.
What?
Now we hear that the boxes cried out after Superman died, which is what Luthor meant when he said,
"The bell's already been rung."
And you may have noticed the pregnancy test in Lois's drawer. I go into all of this in our Ending Explained video. In that video, we also talk about the visions of the future that Cyborg sees, including the deaths of Lois Lane, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. Notice the coins on her eyes. That's a Greek tradition to pay Charon. That was the ferryman who brought the dead across the river Styx and refused to wear a mask in Costco. We also see the arch of the Justice League headquarters, inspired by the Hall of Justice, their HQ from Super Friends. Here we can see Aquaman's trident, and also this green dead lantern looks like Kilowog. Now, after they resurrect him, Superman briefly turns evil, and the movie barely explains why, which is a point that Whedon at least clarified in his version.
Pet Cemetery.
Diana makes the mistake of calling him by his Kryptonian name, Kal-El. Now, this may be Superman's birth name, but it's never been how he refers to himself. The combination of hits he uses against Wonder Woman looks an awful lot like the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. There are other references to that game that I'll go over in a minute. Silas Stone sacrifices himself to make the box easier to detect, after these idiots left it behind. Man, Snyder is really big on poorly staged dad deaths. One of my favorite moments in this movie was Clark feeling the cornstalks to help him return to who he really is, a simple farm boy from Kansas trying to make his way in the universe. Bruce recounts his dream from Batman vs. Superman, basically reminding the audience that it happened. Clark goes to the Kryptonian ship to get a new suit while listening to voiceovers from his dad's. There we see the classic red and blue suit, a Kryptonian battle suit like Zod wears, and Kryptonian outpost armor. But he chooses the black suit, which... okay. In the comics, when Superman returns from the dead, he wears black. This is because it's a Kryptonian regeneration suit that helps him absorb sunlight and become stronger. Here, he seems to choose it because it looks cool or reflects how he feels. I thought this was a strange choice, because it seems like he's becoming a new, hopeful Superman, but he's wearing black. The suit looks cool, but I don't get the meaning. If you do, let me know down in the comments. The best scene in the theatrical version was Aquaman sitting on the lasso of truth, and I was bummed it wasn't in this version. If you have a theatrical cut scene you wish it stayed in, please tell me in the comments. When Superman finally returns, his theme from Man of Steel finally reaches a crescendo. Which is awesome, because I felt like the theme is always building towards something. And here, we get that moment. Superman has arrived. Barry runs faster than light, which isn't possible, but comic books and whatever. He remembers his dad's voice.
It's all right now.
Now this could be setting up Flashpoint, the Flash story where he travels back in time to prevent his mom's murder and accidentally rewrites DC's history. Through the portal we also see Granny Goodness, who runs the re-education program on Apokolips. The epilogue sees Bruce beginning the conversion of Wayne Manor into the Hall of Justice, and Barry gets the crime lab job that he has in the comics. Lex Luthor is in the Arkham home for the emotionally troubled. This is what Arkham Asylum was called in the classic comic book The Dark Knight Returns. There's another homage to The Dark Knight here, when Batman is standing on the tank Batmobile from that book. Luthor's been replaced with a stand-in who is laughing, like he's inhaled the Joker's laughing gas. This is exactly how Joker escapes Arkham in The Killing Joke. The epilogue scene where Luthor reveals Batman's real name was meant to be a setup for the solo Batman movie directed by Ben Affleck.
His name is Bruce Wayne.
Luthor is setting up his own team of villains, the Legion of Doom. This would have been explored more in Justice League 2, which, again, we go over in our Ending Explained video, where we unpack the final nightmare sequence. But to quickly summarize, this apocalyptic future happens because Darkseid kills Lois, and this allows him to control Superman. Lois was also pregnant at the time. This is very similar to the story of Injustice: Gods Among Us, where an apocalyptic future takes place because a pregnant Lois Lane dies. And Superman being controlled by Darkseid originally happened in the Season 1 finale of Superman the Animated Series. The artwork over Bruce's bed has a deep tie to DC Comics. This is your mom. Joker is wearing the SWAT team vest we last saw him wear at the end of Suicide Squad. And Batman also name-checks Harley Quinn.
Because when I held Harley Quinn and she was bleeding and dying, she begged me with her last breath.
Now, this version of the Joker seems like an amalgam of all the Jokers we've seen before. He has long hair like Arthur Fleck, and his face and mouth are covered in tiny scars like Heath Ledger's version. You'll notice that Barry is also wearing the armor that we saw him wear when he time traveled back in Batman vs. Superman. The card that Joker gives to Batman features a version of the character very similar to the one that Gil Kane originally drew in Batman #1. By far, my favorite part of the movie was Zack Snyder's tribute to his daughter. If you have ever thought about suicide, please know that you are not alone. The world is filled with people who care about you and want to talk to you right now. Call this number if you've had suicidal thoughts. Help is here for you. Well, that's all the Easter eggs that I found, but if you have any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.